and Charlie Kirk heard about these curses, and that news genuinely rattled Erica in particular. She knew Christian teaching on the subject. She loved Charlie, absolutely.
But you know what's so interesting about when I was growing up is that my mom actually, I didn't have a Bible growing up.
And that rush is what people can't ignore. Because when someone loses access to an institution that once validated them, protected them, and gave them legitimacy, the instinct isn't always reflection. Sometimes it's replication. Build your own version, control the rules, decide who gets access and who doesn't. And that's exactly what people believe Erica is doing now. See, the church wasn't just a place she worshipped. It was a shield. It gave her moral authority. It allowed her to stand in front of audiences and speak with credibility about faith, grief, discipline, and righteousness. And once that shield was removed, she didn't retreat. She pivoted. First, according to people close to the situation, Erica didn't spend time processing the separation. She didn't publicly acknowledge wrongdoing. She didn't express accountability. Instead, she allegedly framed the fallout as persecution, as if she was being attacked for standing too boldly in her faith. And that framing worked on some people. Because if you're already positioned as a victim, then every consequence becomes proof that you're doing something right. But others weren't buying it. Because the timing was too convenient, the leaked tapes, the church removal, the sudden announcement of a new religious direction. All of it stacked so closely together that it felt less like spiritual awakening and more like crisis management. And once people started looking at it that way, the questions shifted. Not why was she removed, but what is she trying to protect now? That's when the conversation circled back to Erica's inner circle. Specifically, the people who have always been around her, quietly, long before Charlie entered the picture. People whose names never made headlines but whose influence may have shaped far more than anyone realized at the time. Kit Phillips, a man whose proximity to power has always been understated publicly but well known privately. Someone embedded deep within political and religious networks. Someone whose family connections trace directly into institutions that don't like scrutiny. And when you start pulling on that thread, the pattern becomes unsettling. Kit wasn't just some background figure, he was close, present, involved, and according to online speculation that closeness existed well before Erica ever became Mrs. Kirk. Which raises a question people keep circling back to. Why has he always been there? And once that question surfaced, people started looking at his family more closely. Because influence rarely starts with one person, it's inherited, built, protected. Tim Phillips wasn't just another Republican operative. He was a kingmaker, a power broker, the former head of Americans for Prosperity. And when someone like that is suddenly pushed out under vague claims of personal impropriety, people notice. Especially when there's no transparency. Especially when the story disappears just as fast as it surfaced. And when you line that up with rumors about cult-like megachurches, insular communities, and religious organizations that operate more like private corporations than places of worship, the context shifts. Because now, Erica's plan to start a church doesn't look isolated. It looks aligned. People online began drawing comparisons, not randomly, structurally. They pointed to California Community Church, to churches that exist on paper as religious institutions but function in practice as financial shelters, reputation laundromats, and damage control centers for people with money and problems. And that's where the orphanage conversation re-entered the chat. Romanian Angels, a project Erica once promoted as charitable, humanitarian, faith-driven, but over the years allegations have followed it quietly. Claims that parents weren't fully informed, claims that children were relocated under questionable circumstances, claims that documentation didn't always line up. None of this was ever conclusively proven in court. But it never fully went away either. And when people see the same name attached to a religious exit, leaked sexual material, political power ties, and a sudden push to establish a new faith-based entity, the concern isn't imaginary. It's pattern recognition. Because churches don't just offer salvation, they offer protection, tax status, privacy, authority, and control over narrative. And Erica knows that. She's media trained, she's image conscious, she understands optics better than most, which is why people find it hard to believe that this is all happening accidentally. Especially when she continues to avoid direct answers. She hasn't denied the tapes clearly. She hasn't explained the church separation transparently. She hasn't addressed the deeper concerns people are raising about structure, funding, or leadership. She just keeps moving forward. Posting scripture, speaking in absolutes, framing herself as misunderstood, as chosen, as someone being attacked for righteousness rather than questioned for behavior. And that's a familiar playbook. It's the same one used by leaders who collapse inward when external accountability shows up. The same one that reframes criticism as spiritual warfare. The same one that discourages questioning by labeling it as persecution. Which is why even some of her supporters are starting to feel uneasy. Because faith doesn't fear transparency. And leadership doesn't need secrecy to survive. And the scariest part of all of this isn't the leaked tapes, or the church fallout, or even the rumors. It's the speed. The speed at which Erica is trying to replace what she lost. The speed at which she's consolidating influence again. The speed at which she's positioning herself not as someone under scrutiny, but as someone above it. Because when people rush to rebuild power instead of addressing why they lost it, it usually means the stakes are higher than they're admitting. And right now, Erica Kirk isn't slowing down. She's not clarifying. She's not stepping back. She's stepping up. Into a role that gives her even more authority, fewer checks, and a built-in explanation for why anyone who questions her must be acting in bad faith. And that's why this story isn't over. Because this was never just about a church. It was about access. And Erica just lost hers. So now she's building a new door. And everyone's watching to see what she brings with her through it.